Prince William's on-camera candor about the family dog wasn't stagecraft or sentimentality. It was a rare, unguarded moment that revealed how the Wales household absorbs shock, processes grief, and quietly moves forward. In his conversation with Eugene Levy for Apple TV+'s The Reluctant Traveller, William introduced Orla, a honey-eyed cocker spaniel with the soft authority of a dog who knows she belongs, and then, almost offhand, traced the lineage back to Lupo, the black spaniel who padded through their lives for 9 years and died in 2020 during lockdown. Orla is Lupo's niece, he said, and the single sentence did the quiet work of remembrance. The new dog is a living thread to the old one, continuity rather than replacement. When Levi, gently, asked whether the family had been there at the end, William answered without hedging, "We were all there, sadly." It was very sad. The plainness of the phrasing is the point. The future king didn't embroider or deflect. He located the loss inside the family's shared experience and left it there, intact. Lupo's story is woven into the early Wales marriage in a way that is both public and personal. Gifted by James Middleton in 2011, he arrived in the newlyweds' world not as a prop but as a presence, showing up in photographs, slotted into routines, learning the geometry of rooms and nurseries, appearing in those informal images where real life leaks into royal life. The spaniel's black coat became a visual anchor, at Kate's feet in kitchen snapshots, between the children's legs in garden photos, positioned in holiday portraits like a period at the end of a sentence. For 9 years he was the dependable beat under the melody of public duty and private growth, a familiar shape moving from house to house and season to season. When the couple wrote, "He has been at the heart of our family for the past 9 years," it wasn't hyperbole. Anyone who has ever opened a door to a dog who knows precisely when you're late, sad, or frayed understands the grammar of that sentence. Lockdown magnified everything: silence, anxiety, and the strange elastic time of days that felt both repetitive and unstable. Losing Lupo in that compressed space compounded the grief. Children measure loss differently. They inventory what's missing in very practical terms. Who will eat the toast corner? Who will curl under the table during homework? Who will patrol the hallway at bedtime? William's confirmation that we were all there says the family made a deliberate, humane choice to show their children that love stays present in difficult rooms, that endings can be faced together, and that sorrow, handled openly, does not have to metastasize into fear. In the Wales household, that approach coheres with the broader way he describes parenting: predictable rituals, clear explanations, and conversations that name feelings without amplifying dread. When he talks elsewhere about coping mechanisms and insists on the security of routine, dinners around a table, no phones for the children, it's not performative purity, it's a strategy. The rules are scaffolding. Orla's presence turns that scaffolding into something living. A niece is a bridge, she carries genetic echo, a family mannerism, a gait that makes you look twice in a doorway. But Orla is also herself, not a museum replica. In the recent birthday portrait where she appeared with her own puppies, the image didn't feel like PR choreography so much as a family record, new paws scrawling into the margins of a story that already had loss written on earlier pages. Puppies aren't grief medicine, they are life insisting. They introduce mess back into a tidy house, chewed corners, clumsy leaps, the constant comic negotiation over cushions, and in doing so, they return proportion to a home that has done a lot of heavy feeling in the last few years. If you watched William in that scene with Levi, standing easy, offering a treat, narrating the dog's persuasive gaze, you saw a man who understands that small domestic joys are not trivial, they are ballast. The spaniel thread runs through Kate's family, too, and that matters. James Middleton has been outspoken about dogs as stabilizers, living, breathing metronomes for anxious minds, and his gift of Lupo a decade ago reads differently now, with hindsight. It wasn't a decorative gesture, it was an investment in the kind of household William says he's trying to build: warm, secure, structured without being brittle. You see it in the rituals they prioritize: shared meals, school runs, time carved out of a crowded calendar to be physically present, and in the boundaries they enforce about technology. "None of our children have any phones," William told Levi, not as a boast but as a point of clarity. Attention is a limited resource, and they are choosing where to spend it. The dog amplifies that choice. Animals ask for your full presence in small, non-negotiable increments: the morning walk, the muddy towel, the late-night check when thunder shakes the frames. These tiny contracts are how you smuggle discipline into love. There's also a public resonance to all this that William is not naive about. The monarchy trades in continuity. Dogs are continuity embodied. Spaniels sprint through British iconography and domestic memory alike. But for a family that has lived through a relentless decade, bereavements, rifts, illnesses, and the ceaseless hum of scrutiny, the decision to let the country see the animal perimeter of their daily life is a calibrated form of transparency, enough to humanize, not enough to expose. The camera sees Orla take a biscuit. It doesn't see who vacuums after the puppies, who texts the vet, who sets alarms for a 2 a.m. check. That line drawing is intentional. William's comments about not allowing the media's insatiable appetite to flood the house are more than grievance, they are a blueprint for a new equilibrium. Share the universal, protect the intimate. Let people recognize themselves in the family's ordinary joys and losses, keep the particular medicine cabinet of your heart closed. That balance matters because the family's last year has been a cascade of tests. In other segments of the Levi interview, William admits 2024 has been the hardest of his life, with cancer diagnoses for Kate and the King folding the abstract language of resilience into daily logistics, appointments, waiting rooms, the pragmatic optimism of partial information. He describes the feeling when the metaphorical rug goes out from under you and you realize that being fortunate does not grant immunity. In that context, the small pastoral of a dog treat becomes symbolic. It is a micro-moment where the nervous system says, here is a task I can complete. Here is a warm creature I can comfort. Here is a response I can predict. Grief and uncertainty make tyrants of our calendars. Animals break the tyranny with repeatedly simple needs. It's not distraction, it's regulation. Lupo's death, shared publicly at the time in a brief, unadorned statement, also demonstrated a communications tone William is refining. Speak plainly, say just enough, avoid the ornate adjectives of royal condolence. Very sadly, they wrote then. We were all there, he says now. The vocabulary is careful, humane, and unshowy. It's consistent with how he uses other platforms, like the Earthshot Prize, to talk about urgency without apocalyptic theatre. 5 years into Earthshot, he is fond of the phrase urgent optimism, and that's arguably what Orla and her puppies represent inside the smaller ecology of the family, a practice of locating hope without lying about risk. Optimism as a behavior, not a vibe. The educational piece is there, too, and William says it outright. The dinner table matters, history matters. He jokes that George now checks his dates, a line that lands as both proud and slightly chastened. Dogs become tutors in those lessons as well. They teach stewardship, fill the bowl, close the gate, be kind when you're tired, and they teach children about endings in a way that, handled well, doesn't curdle into dread. To sit with a dying pet is to learn the most adult of skills, how to remain when you can't fix. The Wales children, present in that room in 2020, will carry that lesson forward to siblings, to friends, to the 1,000 low-glamour moments in which a family's real character is formed. The optics of dogs in royal spaces are not new, but the emotional grammar is evolving. Past courts often used animals as emblems. This family uses them as companions. That looks different on camera. Fewer posed oil-painted paws, more muddy fur in a boot room, fewer heraldic beasts. More comic insistence at the treat jar. It also reads differently to a public that has grown allergic to varnish. The dog is not a brand asset, she is a witness. She watches the school shoes pile, hears the late-night door click, knows who leaves first in the morning and who lingers last. The presence of that witness, wordless and steady, becomes part of how a modern royal household says, we are a family first, a firm second. Seen through that lens, the Lupo to Orla arc is not a footnote but a parable about the kind of home William says he's determined to build, one that learns from the past without becoming trapped by it, one that holds sorrow without theatrics, one that looks for small, repeatable acts of care to steady big, destabilizing news. The dogs are a through line, from newlyweds to parents of 3, from the quiet menace of lockdown to the measured public relief of the word remission, from the tightrope between exposure and privacy to the compromise William is trying to codify approachability without access, openness without trespass. There is, finally, a civic usefulness to telling this sort of story now. People recognize themselves in it. So many said goodbye to animals during those locked months. So many had children asking unanswerable questions with their hands in a dog's ruff. By naming the loss in spare language and letting a wagging niece take up space in the frame, the prince gives the country a way to metabolize its own memories without feeling handled. Not everything can be a state occasion. Some things must be kitchen table occasions, performed with dogs underfoot and the clatter of ordinary plates. If you strip away the titles, what remains is a simple narrative with real ballast. A young family loved a good dog, the dog died, they stayed together in the hard room, a new dog arrived, carrying a thread of the old dog in her bones. Life resumed its unglamorous rituals, now with puppies tumbling over the skirting boards. That is not a grand saga, and that's exactly why it matters. It is the kind of honesty that builds trust one small admission at a time, and the kind of continuity a nation quietly expects from the household it watches so closely. If this resonated with you, add your voice below. Stories of pets who became family, lessons learned at kitchen tables, the quiet ways you've helped children carry grief without fear. Like the video if you value this kind of unvarnished storytelling, subscribe for more measured royal analysis, and keep the conversation thoughtful.